Welcome to day 2 of AIMExpo. I'm going to tell you right now, because they just asked me to remind you, or to tell you, because you didn't know this, that there's going to be Q&A afterwards with Ricky Carmichael. And now I've just undone my whole intro, because now you know Ricky Carmichael's coming on, and I was going to say thank you. Welcome to AIMExpo and making it great. And speaking of great, the next guest on stage needs no introduction. The greatest of all time, Ricky Carmichael.
Good job. You did a great job. You did a great job. Yeah. She was nervous. That wasn't that bad, was it? Huh? That was simple. What's up, you guys? Everybody good? Good to see everybody back, yeah? You guys are quiet. That's it? Yeah? Pretty good? It's been a little bit of time, and we're all back here. I'm happy to be here. Looks like we're getting back to some normalcy, and man, just all your smiling faces. Great to see some vendors. I saw some dealers that I haven't seen in a while. That's always fun, especially the older that I'm getting, the more that I appreciate it. But thank you, AIMExpo, for having me here. This is special for me to be able to share my story for you guys. And I named this speech a few years back when I wanted to do some motivational speaking, and I was like, man, what could I name my speech? And I thought, you know what, Mind of a Champion sounds pretty good. And basically, I'm going to tell you my story and how I grew up and the keys of basically my success and when that foundation was laid and it was at a really young age. But I'll share some of those keys with you guys, and hopefully at the end of the day it can resonate with what you guys do. That's what I'm hoping for to get out of this, and hopefully you can take a little bit of that and what I've taught you and told you and apply it to what you guys do. I know we're all in a lot of trying times, and we're having to do audibles all the time and find new ways. Most importantly, I think that we all can say is to be creative, especially with supply and demand, supply chain, all that fun stuff, right? So I think it's a great time to be creative, and that was one of the keys to my success and having to be able to do that. So, Mind of a Champion. I am 42 years old. I was born, I'm a 4th generation Floridian. Let's start there. Love that place. I've lived there my whole life. A lot of people ask, well, why did you never have to go to California? Well, I got lucky. I didn't have to go, and I love California, but I was able to stay in Florida. I started riding in 1985. There you go. It was a Yamaha Trizinger. My mom and dad didn't have much. Really simple people. We lived in a 900 square foot house, two bedrooms, 1 bathroom. My dad was an electrician by trade, and my mom had a in-home daycare business. So, and I think looking back, that was kind of by design, so she could be with me most of the time and take me riding. But I started riding in 1985. It was Valentine's Day of all times, right? My dad came up to me and he's like, hey, I want to get you a motorcycle because my cousins used to ride. Everyone always asks me, how did you get into motorcycle racing when, your parents didn't do it? And I'm like, well, my cousins used to race. So he went and got me that motorcycle that you guys see right there. Then shortly along for Christmas, later on that year came the Honda Z50s, which those are great bikes, by the way. So we didn't really know much. And I remember the first time that I ever went riding a motorcycle, and we had to park like on the side of a street, and I had to cross the street to go and ride in the sand pit. And as I was riding in the sand pit, my mom says, okay, if you're done, go back to the truck, but before you go back to the truck, you can't cross the road till I get there. And I was just loving riding, right? And of course, I crossed the road without waiting for her to get there, and she made my dad load up the motorcycle and leave because I didn't listen to her. But anyhow, so time went on. I started racing locally. My first race that I ever did was in Dade City, Florida. Not sure if any of you guys have ever been there, but Dade City Raceway. So I started on that Trizinger, raced about a year and a half, I think, on that. and just racing locally every Saturday night, rain or shine. One thing led to another, and we started to race like regionally in the Southeast, you know, racing in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, all that fun stuff. And at the time, I was still playing baseball. And a little fun fact for you guys, if that was ever something that I really love and wish that I could have done, it would probably be a professional baseball player. I loved playing baseball. To this day, I still love it. Not any good at it, but I really enjoyed it. So I'll never forget this moment. And it was from that point on where I was all in on my career of motorcycle racing, and my parents were all in at that point. We were sitting at the ball field, and it was after the game, and I was starting to race quite a bit, and we were getting the decisions where, hey, do you want to race? Do you want to go to this baseball game? And my mom said, do you want to, you can only do one or two things. You can either play baseball, and we're going to sell all the motorcycles, or you can play baseball, or vice versa. Well, obviously, you guys know what I picked. And I remember at that moment that, man, could I ride motorcycles or play baseball? I'm like, dude, what 7-, 8-year-old didn't want to do that, right? Like, motorcycles are so cool. So I picked motorcycles, and from that point on, I mean, it was all in. And this gets to where I want to talk to you guys about the keys of my success and what got me to where I am sitting and talking to you guys today, and how I had the success in racing. And it started at a very young age, and I was very, very fortunate. I don't know how I had the ability to know this, but at a very young age, I understood the sacrifices that my mom and dad were making for me. By the time I was 10 years old, as we were racing and going to these races, I recognized that they had done so much for me. And like I said, we didn't have much. It was tough to get to the races. My mom was working the concession stands to waive my sign-up fees, sometimes scoring, all that fun stuff. And I was able to recognize that I couldn't let them down. And to make a long story short, what I did is, I mean, I raced for them. I really did, and it's the craziest thing. I'm working on a documentary right now, and yeah, like I raced for them, and my mom never knew that until she saw some stuff of the documentary that we're working on, and I was fortunate enough to know that. And it takes us to the key messages. So from basically that point to where I had to make the decision of baseball or motorcycle riding, it was always give 100% and being honest with yourself. I think that is key, and I see it so much in our sport. You know, like sometimes guys aren't honest with themselves. Doing it right or not doing it at all. My mom was a huge believer in, if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. You're just wasting everyone's time, effort, money. That was another thing. And never give up. If my parents always taught me, if you pull off in a race, and just because you're not winning or you're not riding as well as you need to, you pull off, we're done. We're never going to another race. So that thought, I was so scared to pull out of the race, that it taught me to never give up. Realistic expectations. Although my mom, I mean, everyone knows how great she was with me, and basically my coach, and laid this foundation for me, we always had realistic expectations. And I'm going to get back to all these points and relate it to you guys and kind of parallel it with you guys. But my mom always had realistic expectations for me. you know, if I moved up in a division of a class, an example would be if I moved from the 7 to 11 class as a mini bike rider, there you go, that's at Loretta Lynn's, by the way, and then I moved to the 12 to 13 class. If I'm racing against older kids, I don't think it's a fair ask for me to go out there and start beating 13-year-olds when had just turned 12. So I think it's really important to always set realistic expectations. And in the past, I've told riders that I may mentor, like, hey, man, if third's all you got, third is all you got. If you can't set yourself up for failure right out of the gate. If you don't have a realistic shot of winning, that's okay. But if you have a realistic shot of getting third, then that's what needs to be a realistic expectation. And I feel like when you don't have realistic expectations, you set yourself up to lose right out of the gate. And so, you know, that was one. Respecting your competitors. There wasn't a time in my career, that I wasn't scared of losing. And it's because my parents always taught me to have respect for my competition. Whether it's you guys, dealers and other dealers, or you think you're better than the other dealer, hey man, at any given time, that other dealer could outperform you. That other sales rep could outperform you. And I was scared to death of always getting beat. And looking back, hindsight, it taught me so much. It taught me work ethic and how I approach things. So absolutely, you just never give up and keep trying, and things will work out. No regrets. And I'm going to leave you guys, this will be my last key. No regrets. And what I mean by that is, in motocross, most of the time, very rarely do you get a second chance. And as I got older and into my professional career, I had a path. I could go this way, I could go this way. And I was able to understand that I didn't want to look back on my career and say, damn, I wish I would have done this. Because at that point, time would have passed me by, and I wouldn't be able to go back in time and fix that. And so when I've done some sales meetings and stuff like that, I always tell like reps and stuff, and you guys are great people. You're thinking clearly. You're honest people. You know if you gave it 100%. And I think what I would say to everyone is, whatever it might be, if you're a racer, if you're a sales rep, if you're a manager, it doesn't matter, whatever you are. You don't want to go into somewhere, leave that shop, that store, and then get in your car, or for me, get back to the shop and be like, damn, I wish I would have done this. To me, I think it's just worse. You live in regret. So my mom and dad taught me that from a very young age. That's when the foundation was laid. Going up through these, as you see that picture right there, that's Ponca City. Some of my first couple amateur career wins. I think I won 3 classes. We entered in 3 classes. That was 1987 or 88, I believe. Or that might even have been World Mini here in Las Vegas, believe it or not. So good times. So going back to the sacrifices my parents made, and that last picture that you saw, we can't go back on the picture, but a cool story. We didn't have enough money to get to the race, and my dad sold. He had a 1987 Fat Boy, Harley Fat Boy, and he sold it to buy us plane tickets. My mom, myself, himself, and hotel rooms, all that stuff to get us out here to one of my first amateur nationals. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, if I ever turn pro, the first thing that I'm going to buy you is I'm going to buy you that Fat Boy back. And 1997 was my first professional career, and let's see, I turned pro in October of 1996, and my dad had a 1997 Fat Boy sitting there, and he had no clue. And I had, from the first time that I told him that I was going to buy him that, I never told him that for the rest of, for another 12 years until it showed up in his garage. I said, "Here you go, Dad, I paid you back." So a cool story, but just as I told you guys earlier, was able to recognize the sacrifice that my parents had made for me. And I think that's what we all do. You know, all of you guys, whether you're starting up a dealer, whether you're trying to grow your dealer, I think there's sacrifices that need to be made. Might not seem like a great idea at the time, but you never know unless you try. And whether it's, you know, putting more money into the marketing department, you know, paying more attention to your customers, and just not taking things for granted, and knowing that what you have could be gone boom like that because the next guy's working just a little bit more harder than you, or being more creative, being more innovative, things like that. This is a time where I think that you have to be thinking so far ahead, and it's hard to do, but I think more people are capable of it than not, and you just have to believe in yourself. And you know, that's what my parents always taught me, and I know that in times like this, just thinking ahead and moving around, there's a lot of challenges and obstacles. You guys can do it. I know you can. It's not always a fun process. I think we can all always agree like that, right? None of us like failure. But you know what? One thing though, if you do fail, if you gave it 100%, you have no regrets, right? It's like kind of, I told you guys, like I never wanted to look back and be like, damn, I wish I would have done this. I should have done a couple more laps. You don't want to do that as a sales rep, manager, you know, store owner. Do it 100% or don't do it at all. Funny story as far as doing it 100% and not doing it at all. We were at the track one time. I was well into my professional career, and I was at the track, and it was long. It was hot that day, and my mom kept trying to get me to do these drills, right? And I'm like, you know what, I'm done. And she was trying to guilt trip me, and she's all, well, that's fine, you know, you want to get past in these corners, then, you know, you're the one that's got to live with it. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty good. Championship's looking pretty good. We were late into the series, and I said, you know what, I'm done. So I get undressed and I get my car and I'm driving out of the gate. And this is where like racing is so mental, right? Like everybody always thinks like if you got bike skill and you're in good shape, you can, you know, like you can win. Well, that's not necessarily the case. So I'm driving out of the farm, and I get to the gate. I'm like, you know what? Gosh dang it, she got me again. So I turn around, I drive back up to the shop. I get dressed back up, and I like all my gear at that, like it was sweaty and nasty, and I only had like 10 more reps to do. Hop on my motorcycle, go out there, and finish up my reps. Leave there, felt 100% going into that weekend because I knew that I had did everything that I could possibly do, and I knew that there was no regrets because I just didn't want to think, not even for a second, excuse me, that I left without handling my business going into that weekend. So cool little story right there. 1997 was my first professional year, my first pro championship, 1997 MX Outdoors. And that's my mentor right there, Johnny O'Mara. Past Supercross MX champ in his own right. I learned a lot from that guy. He taught me a lot about work ethic. When I first turned pro, I told you guys I could go this way or that way, and I feel like I chose the right route, and Johnny O'Mara really helped me. He was instrumental in teaching me how to train, having mindset, and and forecasting what races were going to be like. We were so ahead of the game. He taught me a lot about motorcycles and how they work, and suspension and engine. The guy was just so instrumental in my career. I'll forever be in debt to him. But 97, so I wasn't planning on winning. I wasn't planning on winning any championship. I was just going there to do the best that I could. And it was at that stage where I was realizing that the harder I worked, like everything was coming to fruition, like everything my parents had taught, those key values and those key messages, like work 100%, do it right or don't do it at all. But I could see I was beating people just because I worked harder, and not because I had more talent. And I always tell people all the time, I'm like, man, I would trade talent for hard work ethic any day of the week. Any day of the week. So I started to realize what my parents had taught me. I'm like, man, I'm working harder than everyone else. I'm doing it right or not doing it all. And it started to turn. And at that stage, the sacrifices that I was making really became a lot easier. It became a lot easier because I could see light at the end of the tunnel. So we go and we win that championship in 1997. That was really, really special. And then here you go, 1998. This is something special to me because no one has been able to tie it just yet, but I was able to win the East Coast Supercross Championship. Then I won every race, including the East-West Shootout. And the reason that it was fun is because I took everything, all the mistakes that I made in 1997, and I fixed those for 1998. I learned from my experiences. And one other thing that rings clear in my bell is my mom always said, you can't take one mistake and make another one, right? You make one, that's okay, but you can't turn one mistake into two mistakes. So that was a really special year. People often ask me what was my funnest year of racing, and for sure it certainly was 1998. I was 18 years old, living the dream. I went undefeated in the East Coast Championship, and then I won the Outdoor Championship as well. So then we move on to 99, also another question, and I know we have the Q&A after, and if you guys are going to ask me this question, I'm sorry for answering it for you, but 99 was probably a year that I would like to forget. We talk about tough times and digging deep. What you see on the screen, this was it right here. This was 1999 San Diego Supercross. Had a great heat race, beat McGrath, and I was like, oh my gosh, because there have been so many years leading up throughout my career, like, you're the guy, you're gonna beat him, and I beat him in the heat race, and I was ahead of him in the main, and I fell down, and basically that, I ended up chipping my pelvic bone, all that stuff, and but I never gave up after that. And I'll tell you what, 99 was some dark times in Supercross. I never made the podium. I think I was like 17th in the points championship. I missed 3 or 4 races, and but what it did was all those mistakes that I made, it helped me be the person that I am today, and it helped me be the champion that I became. Never, when you guys are looking at that picture, never ever once did I think that I would become 5-time Supercross champ, ever. It was so hard, and I was like, oh man. I said, what am I gonna do? So 99, just kind of erase that, and then we'll fast forward to 2001 right there. And that picture brings back so many great memories. Couple reasons why. In the summer of 2000, it's kind of when I made the transformation. I hired a trainer out of South Africa. I think most of you guys know who he is. And man, we started working. We started working together. Ended up winning the outdoor series in 2000. It was great, but the main goal was to beat that guy right there in the middle, #1, the king of Supercross. So I go back to all these values, and I had them all written down. You know, my parents taught me, give it 100%, don't give up, respect your competition, and I was scared to death of Jeremy all the time. I was so scared that I wasn't going to beat him, or when I started beating him, that he was going to beat me. But I kept going, and that was one of the sweetest years ever for me, just because, he is the guy. No one has been able to, not very many people have been able to beat him. So to finally reach that, and there have been so many years, 2 years to be precise, that I was supposed to beat him, and quite frankly didn't answer the bell. This picture right here you see, people thought like that was the changing of the guard right there, and actually I'm completely out of control in that picture. Straight up. I am out of control in that picture. So that was opening ceremonies, and I went to do a whip off of the triple at Anaheim, and they had watered the face of the takeoff, and as I was going up the takeoff, I leaned the bike over and lost traction. So yeah, right there, like I said, people think that was a passing of the torch. I was thinking, I'm just handing them the #1 plate right here, because I didn't think I was gonna bring it back. There's no doubt about that. But 2001, to finally do that, it was special. And the thing that I look back, and I wish that all of you guys, when you guys accomplish something really big and you make new goals for yourself, enjoy those moments, because you never know when you'll get them back. You never will. And you worked hard to get those goals, so enjoy them. I didn't enjoy it as much as I should have, because I was caught up just basically in the game. You know, everything is happening so fast. In motocross, you're only as good as your last race. And we were just so entrenched in racing and trying to get to the finish line of this championship. So you guys enjoy yourself. When you go out and you give it 110%, you have no regrets. You walk out of that dealer, you know that you gave it 110%. So enjoy the damn thing. Enjoy yourself, right? There's no do-overs here. Like motocross, there's no do-overs. The one regret I have is not really enjoying those moments as much as I did. But now I'm here to share my story, to tell you guys and get you motivated and give you some tips that hopefully you can take with you and hit your marks and be better all around. That was fun. Jace, there you go. Another monumental moment in my career for a couple of reasons. That is from 2004, that picture right there. And it's special because I tore my ACL and I wasn't able to race Supercross, so I came back to Motocross Series, if you guys remember. And it was my last year on Honda. I had signed my Suzuki contract in April, before the outdoor series even started. And I was able to go 24-0 for the second time. So special, so special. And this is where I get back to realistic expectations and setting realistic goals. Is I never set out to win 24 in a row. There is no way. I mean, who in their right mind would want, like, you're setting yourself up for failure. There is no way. You know how many things can go wrong? Flat tire. I could fall down. There could be a mud race. The bike could break. You know, I mean, there's so many variables that could go wrong. And I feel like that's why I was able to do it, looking back and sitting here talking to you guys, is that, man, I wasn't trying to go 24-0. I wanted to win every race, but I wasn't trying to do that. But I had realistic expectations, and it ended up working out. This picture right here, 2002 Pontiac Supercross. Was anybody there that year? Does anybody remember? I got one guy over here. It's a long time ago. Man, we're dating ourselves 20 years ago. Doesn't seem like that, but I always tell people, like, that picture right there, when the bike was going away, I was envisioning my #1 plate championship going tumbling. So that was a fun race, but I never gave up. It would have been so easy to stop right then and there and not march up to the front, but I kept going. I picked the bike up and ended up getting second place to my teammate Nathan Ramsey that day, and believe it or not, I ended up gaining points on all the guys that I needed to gain points on that night. McGrath, David Vielman, those guys were 1-2, I believe, in the championship at that time. And for some reason, they didn't want to win as bad as I didn't want to win that night, because I was able to get by them for sure. One thing that I would like to speak to you guys about, and I wrote this down and I was thinking, you know, like some similarities of what motorcycle racers, myself personally, and you guys do, dealers, sales managers, anyone in sales for that matter, building relationships and always respecting everyone, no matter if it's the person sweeping the floors, because you don't know where he's going to be that day. I feel like I credited myself. I had a great working relationship at Factory Kawasaki. When I left Factory Kawasaki, I went to Factory Honda for 3 years, and I built those relationships. I had a personal relationship with each individual on that team, whether it was stick and ball sports with my suspension technician, whether it was some kind of silly movie my engine guy liked, or whatever it might be, even the Japanese engineers. I feel like for you guys, I think it's so important to treat everybody the same way, no matter what their position is, because if they're at a lower position, you never know, you just never know where they're going to be someday. You might be answering to them, and building that relationship goes a long ways. I mean, I hear people talk about it all the time, as you guys do. You say, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Perfect prime example. And it was so cool to see my guys at each team that I went to, whether it was Factory Kawasaki, Factory Honda, and Factory Suzuki, rally behind me. Some people say, oh yeah, it was because you were always winning. Well, maybe there was a little bit of that in there, but I bet more of it is because I was a people person, and I tried to have my own personal relationship with every single team member on that team. And I think that could go a long way with you guys. I really, truly do believe that, especially in a time like this. You know, it's what you know, it's not who you know. You got a buddy, you got a manager that's willing to do a little bit more for you here and there, and that's all because it's relationships. And relationships, in my opinion, is the easy thing to build. It's fun, you talk, you find out what they're into, and you go from there. And it's such an underrated, easy task. I see a lot of mistakes being made. Sometimes in the racing world, with some of the riders, I feel like they could do a little bit better job of taking care of the guys that take care of them. And it's fun. It's satisfying to see that. And I think that kind of resonates with you guys as well. Another thing too that I think paralleling with you guys with what we do is, in times of change, motorcycle track conditions are changing all the time. Being in uncomfortable situations that you've never been into, and having the ability and the wherewithal to adapt. This picture you see right here is a prime example of it. That is in Belgium at the Motocross of Nations. Didn't win as a team, but it was still a great race. Completely different scenarios of any other type of racing that we do, the Motocross of Nations. Different sanctioning body, completely different system, and how you line up, how you pick your gates, all that stuff. Same to you guys. Boom, you walk into a dealer, pow, there's a new manager. You have a new employee. You got to be able to move. You got to be mobile. You got to be able to adapt to certain situations. And that goes back to building the relationships. If you're able to build those relationships, no problem if another guy comes in. Just have that same approach. Be kind, be polite, chat it up with the dudes, see what their interest is in. Doesn't matter what it is. But that's a prime example of having to navigate and be able to change with the conditions, especially for your guys' world. You know, I can't imagine, you know, what you guys have had to go through, but you know, your hard work is going to certainly pay off, and being able to, like I said, change with the tide goes a long ways. This is really nice. This picture right here brings back so many memories. I go back to my negotiations with Honda and Suzuki, and it's crazy because I felt like Honda thought that I was done, you know, like they weren't showing much interest. And by that time, I had already signed my Suzuki contract. So I put Seabiscuit on the back of my pants. And most of you have watched Seabiscuit. If you haven't, the horse it broke its leg. They thought it was done. And kind of same thing with me. So that was certainly a special moment for me to come back, win the first race back from ACL repair, and then go on to go 24-0. No doubt about that. Super special. This one right here is so special to me. It's Daytona. Daytona was always special. People ask me, why, man? Like, why do you like Daytona so much? I'm like, well, I'm a Floridian, and it really just suit my style. More like outdoorsy type, and kind of just let it all hang out. It got really rough. It was, I think it's the hardest Supercross on the circuit that we go to. It's one of the most decorated Supercross tracks that we go to. You can ask most of the riders if there's one race that they want to win. It's probably Anaheim, the opener, or Daytona Supercross. All of the brass from the manufacturers are there. They're watching, and yeah, that's certainly a good one and a special one to win, no doubt. Through trying times, like, and we're all going through here, and this is where I go back to the key messages that my mom and dad taught me as a little kid. This dude right here, number 22, Chad Reed, was a real thorn in my side for a couple of reasons. He was just fast enough to be able to hang with me, and he was so consistent. But I stuck to my core values, and I never gave up, and I found certain ways to beat him. Just like I'm telling you guys, like, you gotta be creative. How do you outsmart him? You know, what are certain ways that I can beat him by not being faster? You know, it really made me think out of the box, and at the end of the day, we were able to do that. At the same time, I go back to realistic expectations with this guy right here. There were nights where I knew that I couldn't beat him, so I wasn't going to set my expectation to win, because if I didn't win, I was going to be super bummed throughout the night and then throughout the week, and that just does anybody good. So I'm not into all the numbers and stuff like you guys are, but you know, obviously you want to set your benchmark clearly, right? But I think you need to make it obtainable. I mean, you can't always, you know, it's like playing with your dog, you know, throwing the ball back and forth or playing tug of war with him. If you don't let him win once in a while, he's not going to want to play with you anymore, right? So same kind of thing, same thing. But at the end, there you go. That is, I think it's Houston Supercross. I was able to win the 2005 Supercross Championship on a brand that no one thought that I could win on. But I was able, but the reason I feel I had so much success there at that team is because I did my homework behind the scenes. I worked a little bit extra hard, and I was so sick and tired of everyone telling me that I couldn't do it. Why couldn't I do it? Why not? I mean, the bike was good. I had Roger DeCoster working for me, Ian Harrison, all guys that work for the team that the Supercross champ rides for right now, and they won the Supercross championship. So that's really special. But it all goes back to, and I know I keep telling you guys this, but it goes back to those key messages that we talked about. Always giving it 100%, never giving up, surrounding yourself with great people. If you surround yourself with great people, great things happen. You surround yourself with winners, more than likely you're going to start winning, or your results are going to get better. I mean, my children, I always tell them, you're a product of your environment. You hang out with winners, you become winners. You hang out with people that aren't giving it 100% and are bad influences, it's probably going to reflect poorly on you. So I am a big believer in surrounding yourself with the best people possible, and I think there's only one way to go when you do that, and that's straight to the top. And now going back to strategy, talking about strategy and thinking outside the box, I was telling you guys about Chad Reed. This dude right here, up until this year, I think he's probably the fastest dude that's ever raced a dirt bike, way ahead of his time. It was so much fun racing both of these guys, Chad Reed and James Stewart. They kept me honest. And I mean, the battles that we had, we wouldn't even look at each other on the line. We wanted to kick each other's ass so bad. I mean, literally, I'm here, Chad's here, James is here, or whatever, or they're both on each side, and it's just, we wouldn't look at each other. We wouldn't give each other the pleasure of knowing that we even liked the person, but it was competition, willing to do anything to win. And I really believe what you guys do is the same way. It's the same way in anything, any sport, any discipline and work that you're in. You do the best that you can do. Why? So you have no regrets. I just couldn't imagine had I not given it 100% and looking back and being like, shit, I wish I would have done this. Because I can't turn, you just can't turn the clock. Funny story about this one. You guys ready for this? So this is Hangtown National, California. And I'm not sure why I'm pulling a tear off in the first corner, but about 50 yards after that photo was shot, there's a little right-hand sweeping turn. And I ran out of talent, as I like to say. And I hit the deck, and everybody went blowing by me. And yeah, that was not a great day at the office. But somebody did give me this picture, and it's really cool. Everyone else is black and white, and I'm still in color. Pretty cool. But I got up and marched on through the field, maybe made the box. I think that was the same race, coming back through the pack for sure. A lot of fun. I mean, James Stewart was so fast, so crafty, and there were times where, I just knew I wasn't going to be able to beat him. A lot like Chad, and I'm like, oh well, people always ask me, how would you beat James? Well, my strategy was simple. I'm going to try to follow him and force him into a mistake. And if I can force him into a mistake, he's going to fall down. And if he falls down, boom, I'm going to win. So because I knew if I ever tried to go faster than him, he's just going to go faster. So why risk it? I think sometimes you work a little bit smarter and not harder, and it works out. So that was my strategy sometimes to beat James when he was on a good one. Now Chad, he had great speed, and he was very consistent, and that is a really tough combination to beat. Rarely did he make mistakes, but he wasn't willing, in my opinion, to ride that edge, and I was willing to take that risk. And as far as strategy to get the best of Chad, that was probably how my game plan for him. So two separate different racers. I was willing to ride that edge. Isn't that crazy? You're willing to ride that edge with one guy, being Chad, but not with James. Completely different, because you know James is just gonna step up. There you go. I wasn't really a good scrubber. I think that's trick photography, but talking about being like creative, finding ways to be better, finding ways to outsell your competition. This was it. I mean, for me, that's a pretty lame attempt at being creative and trying to scrub. But I think in this day and age, in the world we live in, and we talked about supply and demand in the supply chain, and not a lot of product out there when we need it, we got to get creative. We got to find ways, to be better, outwork our competition. You guys can do it. I know you can. It's not, it's at the end of the day, it's not that hard to give it 100% and be creative. And I feel like if you can respect everyone, respect your competitors, have that little bit of fear. There's nothing wrong with having fear. Nothing wrong with having fear of getting beat. Hell, I made a career out of it. But it's okay to have a little bit of fear. That's what keeps you going. So it keeps you not wanting to get beat. And I think it parallels with what you guys do. This would be my last Supercross, and it was a special one. I'm gonna go ahead and answer this question for you, but that was my favorite race ever of my career. I didn't even win that race, but the reason that I liked it so much and it was my favorite race is because we were riding at such a high level that everything felt effortless and we could do no wrong. It was just an absolute epic race, and all you can do is do your best, and that's what I did that night. I don't feel like I made hardly any mistakes for a 20-lap main event, and all I had was second, but I was proud. I had a realistic expectation. It's what I tell you guys. You have a realistic expectation, you go out there, and man, if all you got is third today, you better get third. What you can't do is, if you're capable of third, get fifth. Same for you guys. So special night for me. That was one of my last outdoors. Just a fantastic career. Very, very fortunate, and a lot of it again is from the people that I surrounded myself with. I had great people. And I think it was because of the people that I surrounded myself with, and I had that personal connection goes a long ways. And at the end of the day, they saw the effort. They saw the effort that I was putting into, and you guys can do it. Just, you walk into a store and do your best. Don't walk out that store, get back in your car and feel like, damn, you know what, I probably could have done a little bit better. And I'll challenge you guys. I feel like, I've had those moments in motocross. And you know what? If you guys have that moment, and you leave somewhere and you think just for a second, man, you know what? I could have done a little bit better there. What could I have done a little bit better? Then you didn't give it 100%, and you'll make the best of it next time that you go. And that's what I'm here to try to help you guys, and hopefully that you guys have enjoyed some of my stories. We could sit here and talk all night, but you know, I'll leave you guys with this. And it's funny because it's like people always say, man, I want to win. I want to win. But the unfortunate part is they don't like the process of what it takes to win. And so when someone tells me they want to win and then I see them not enjoying the process of that, man, I just ain't got no time for it. So always do your best. And if you say you want to win, enjoy the dang process, because it's not easy and no one's going to give it to you. So thank you very much. We're going to open it up for some questions. Thank you. Oh, thank you. We got some questions. Anyone, anything you want? What's my deal with Triumph? I'm an ambassador for Triumph Motorcycles, and I think we're gonna have a dirt bike eventually, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I love the position that I'm in nowadays with my role at NBC and brand ambassador role with Triumph Motorcycles and getting into the adventure world and other projects that we're working. So it's been a lot of fun. They've been a great partner. My old boss at Suzuki is now there, and man, it's been great. I'm so thankful that he's brought us into the fold. They're a really motivated company. It doesn't work. Nope, here you go. That guy's got one for you.
Ricky, on that Suzuki, of course I'm a Suzuki lover. How did you manage to go faster with shorter suspension than those big boys on the long suspension?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a very good sense of what I needed and how I needed my bike to work to win races. My suspension guys, yeah, I'm a shorter guy, obviously, so I didn't have the leverage. So I always felt like I needed to have my center of gravity really, really low. If the bike was really tall and had a lot of travel, I just felt like there was too much movement, and when there was too much movement and the bike was working like almost too much, the throttle would go the opposite way. So yeah, it wasn't popular opinion with the suspension engineers and technicians, but at the end of the day, I knew exactly what I needed to win. So good question.
You made it work.
Yeah, thanks. Good question. Good question.
Ricky, thank you again for speaking with us. That was amazing. Throughout your career, you have done an incredible job of rising to the top, whatever you're doing. You know, and you explained how. But as far as being in business for a long time, it's easy to keep doing the same things we keep doing. As far as planning your next move, I mean, you transitioned to announcing now and taking control of that and with Triumph. So how far do you plan ahead for the next thing? Yeah, good question. So I got really lucky as far as planning for the next thing. When I retired from racing in 2007, I had already signed a 2 or 3 year contract to do four-wheel stuff. So I transitioned there. I didn't have any dead time. I really wasn't spinning my wheels and all that. And then from that, once my NASCAR thing was done, I got an awesome opportunity with a good friend of mine, Kerry Hart. We started up RCH. Kerry had already had the Hart and Huntington race team, but we joined up together and we created RCH, and that was a great run. And after that, I had dabbled in the TV world just a little bit when I was injured in 2004, and then even when we had RCH, I did some booth hits and stuff like that when Ralph and Jeff were in the booth, and I'm like, man, I kind of like it, but I didn't know that I was ready to make that 17-week commitment. You know, I'd done that for so long, and my kids were young, and I'm like, man, it's been about me for so long, it needs to be about everyone else. So now that my kids are older, yeah, I got the offer to do the NBC analysis job for Monster Energy Supercross.
So that has taken me to where we are now. And then, you know, I'm still young. I'm 42 years old. I want to keep going. I'm having too much fun. I love riding motorcycles. And when the Triumph thing came along, like I told you guys, my old boss at Suzuki is now at Triumph, and he presented this opportunity with me. I'm like, hell yeah, man, let's try this. And one thing, one thing turned into another, and we've got a long relationship with Triumph. In the future, I plan to keep on going and giving back to the sport. I love what I do on TV. I love doing adventure rides, sharing my stories, other projects that we have going on with Triumph that I think everyone will be really excited about. That keeps me going, just giving back to the sport that has given me something extremely special that I'd never thought that I would have. Great question.
Hey, RC, thanks for coming out. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you with regard to the future of the sport and the longevity of the careers with some of the local pros that are coming up. And I'll give you an example. I know you know Kevin Moran's very well. We're local to him in our local area.
Yep.
He's trained my son for a number of years. Some of the challenges that I see are that the reality of the sport is that there are only a handful of riders that are going to have a successful career in motocross. What kind of conversations are happening behind the scenes with you and your contemporaries to try to figure out ways for these guys to be able to make a living at this sport and extend the longevity of their career outside of injury financially? The old days of just trying to wrangle up a sponsor and hope that they're going to pay your way through and you're going to make enough money to be able to support yourself and your family grow seem like they're gone. Are there any conversations happening behind the scenes that are going to try to help those guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm with you on a lot of that stuff. Yeah, there are talks. I don't know how serious they are. I mean, I feel like they've been talking about it since I was racing pro. At the end of the day, I feel like this sport is still relatively, if you're comparing it to, like, for the risks that they take, absolutely they should be making way more, and there should be pensions and all that stuff, or people think there should be pensions. It's still relatively a small sport and young sport at that. That's the key thing. It's a young sport compared to the bigger sports that we want all the benefits that they have. You know, TV money is 10 times bigger in other sports. That's where a lot of the stuff comes from right now. Heck, I mean, purses, the big purses where you could really make a good living, to your point, and retire on, is coming from the manufacturer, right? It's going to be really hard to earn a really good living off of just the race purse, unfortunately. But there are talks. I know that some of the powers that be definitely want to make it worth their while. At the same time, I will tell you this, because I feel like, there's been a lot of talk about rider unions in the past, and what does that look like, and I don't know that everyone in our sport would stick together. Like when I say the pro division, I don't know that everyone would do what it takes to be unified like that. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like there'd be one other guy that would go out and say, well, if these guys are going to do this, and I'm going to go over here. And it really takes everybody being on the same page. Obviously, like I said, for the risk that they're taking, I do wish that there was something set up. But at the same time, yeah, there are talks about it. Whether it happens and when it happens, that is to be determined. But there are talks. Yep. Anybody else? JH, thanks for walking the mic around. Oh, we got one. Go ahead. It's not going to be electric, I can tell you. Yeah. Yeah.
Just want to say I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thanks.
Watched you since I was a little kid.
No, wait, stand up. How tall are you? No, you're not huge. No, I'm kidding.
I'm fat.
I'm
so.
kidding. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Thank you though. Thanks. What's up?
So the industry took a big turn in the sport. FIM stepping away and doing the whole World Supercross. How do you feel about the future of the World Supercross compared to the AMA?
Great question. What do I feel about World Supercross to AMA Supercross? I think AMA Supercross is the pinnacle of the sport. That's where all the resources go. And I'm gonna answer this question in a roundabout way. I'm gonna give you an example. So everyone always asks, like, how come we don't do as good at the Motocross of Nations, and the European guys are so fast? And part of, I feel like, what we're seeing is the European guys certainly have raised their game. Kudos to them, without a doubt. They're bringing the heat. But at the same time, I feel like in the outdoors, the American series, the guys are just doing enough to get the job done. It's not like, you know, I think the approach for Supercross, these guys say, man, how do I get better? The teams, how do we get better? How do we get better? How do we go faster? You know, they're more innovative, I think. So that's, to your point about Supercross, like, everything is AMA Supercross. Everything. That is the pinnacle. Now, the World Supercross, I understand the concept. I think from a world market, I think it'd be okay. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of, I mean, it's just a big step. It's a big step. I wonder how, you know, the manufacturers are going to take it. You know, and our Supercross past champions, how they feel about that, what that looks like. I just think it's a really, really, really big commitment, and the way that our minds think in our industry, I just think it's a big thought, you know, for these manufacturers. And AMA Supercross is really strong right now, I would say, and it's comfortable for the guys. You know, they know where they're going, and I feel like now that things are back to every Saturday, the TV coverage is pretty good. You know, they're making good money, and you know, if they're winning, and I like the idea. I don't know how ready we are for that yet. That's a big jump, but I hope it goes well, because I think it would be great to be. Could you imagine a MotoGP but Supercross? It'd be cool. So we'll see.
Hey, Ricky.
Hey.
Big fan, dude. Been following you since the Terra Firma days.
All right.
Good stuff. So just basically curious, you know, watching a Supercross today, and there's, you know, 10, 12, 15 guys that could win, have won, past champions.
Yeah.
You know, and watching you back in the early 2000s, it was like you know, Reed, one of you guys were going to be up there. I remember watching you fall down in the first corner, come back, win the race, you know, and you just don't really see that right now. So, you know, the way you talk about your motivation and how hard you worked, do you think these guys today are working as hard as you did? Or were you, let's see, how do I say this? Were you working that much harder than everybody else that you were just next level fast? And are these guys today all just doing that, or is nobody working that hard anymore? Fantastic question.
I think more guys train at that level, at that top level, than they did in our days. In my day, another thing that I think what you're seeing is most of these guys, there's a few exceptions, but most of these guys rode at a facility and grew up at a facility, riding with each other all the time. So it's basically like there's no secrets. Like when Chad and James and I were racing together, there is no way in hell that Chad Reed would let me come ride with him, and I wouldn't let him come ride with me. And same for James. Why would we want to make life harder on us? So there was more secret things going on. So to give you an example, if I was doing 220 lap motos on Tuesday and Thursday and then doing sprint laps here, well, they didn't know exactly what I was doing. Well, now everyone trains together, they ride together, so everyone's doing the same stuff. And a lot of those guys have ridden together since they were on minis, and now they're at the pinnacle of the sport. So you have all those things coming together. That's my opinion. Like I said, there's exceptions. You look like Tomac didn't grow up at a facility, Roxon didn't grow up at a facility. I gotta double check. I don't know if Coop did a whole lot, but that's my opinion. Makes for great racing, but I feel at the end of the day, the best guy is still going to win. And even more than ever, I feel like the strongest guy mentally is going to be able to win, because the strongest guy mentally is not going to be bothered by all these other fast guys. They know how good they are mentally. They're mentally sound. So I think it really puts emphasis on the mental game, because they won't be bothered by it, and they have the mental strength to be able to adapt to, okay, so Jason Anderson was fast last week in Oakland. Okay, well, maybe Dylan Ferrandis will be fast this week. So the guy who's mentally strong is going to know how to adapt to every single rider. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Great question, though. Yeah, but I think everyone's raised their level because everyone trains the same for the most part. All good? Well, thank you, guys.
No, I was just going to say thank you, Ricky, for your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Ricky will be signing autographs back by the bar, so grab an autograph, grab a cocktail, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
See you guys tomorrow.